Hey VC, it's Matt again. How's everyone doing tonight? I hope everyone's doing well. Um, just made a video last night showing some two or three of the things that I picked up recently, and I thought I would make another tonight, doing a talking about one specific album. And what inspired me to do that was well, uh, I've seen people do album reviews on the VC, but in particular, Mean Mr. Mayo, a guy named Joe. Probably know him. He's uh, he's pretty well known on the VC, I think. But if you don't, definitely go and check out his channel, Mean Mr. Mayo, and he's really knowledgeable, uh, great knowledge of music, and very interesting to hear his insights. Um, as the name would suggest, Mean Mr. Mayo would be shorthand for Mean Mr. Mustard, the Beatles song on Abbey Road. So obviously he's a huge Beatle fan and shows a lot of great Beatle records and Beatle and solo records. But he likes a lot of different types of music and a wide range of music. So he talks about other bands and other singers as well. Always interesting to hear his insights on those things. Um, he's got a I don't know if it's odd or touching affinity for Connie Francis records, or maybe it's just Connie Francis. I don't know. But so you'll see some Connie Francis records on his videos, and Beatles and Rolling Stones and all sorts of good stuff. But what he does, among other things, on his videos, he recently started a series of reviewing albums, and Beatles would be the obvious starting point there for him, but he chose not to do that. Said something along the lines that, what can I add to, what can I tell you about Revolver, Sergeant Pepper that hadn't already been said? Which, you know, I hope in time that he will do the Beatle albums, because I'd like to hear his thoughts on each particular one. But what he's done instead, and I find this pretty interesting, is he's chosen to do reviews of the solo albums, which is pretty neat, I think, for several reasons. One being that with the Beatles albums, the the English versions anyway, you've got, was it 12 albums? And if you're looking at the solo albums, you've got, I don't even really hazard a guess, but I mean, it's got to be 100 or more releases when all four of them, all their records over the years, if you add them up. And the other interesting part about it is that he didn't just do the obvious. He's done so far. He's done about uh, 14 or 15 reviews, and I don't know if he's going to do every single one of them. I hope he does, because I'd like to hear his thoughts on all of them, particularly some of the weird, those Lennon's unfinished music things and the Harrison electronic sounds and some of those weird things like that. But he's done about 14, 15 of them so far. And what I like is that he didn't start out with the obvious choices. So it's not like, well, I'm gonna review Band on the Run, and next week I'll do All Things Must Pass, and next week I'll do Imagine, and then I'll do Ram, and so he's hadn't gone that route. He's done some of the more some of the better known ones like Double Fantasy, but he's done a lot of the more obscure ones. Uh, Ringo's Old Wave, McCartney 2, things like that, which is pretty cool, because usually when you read stuff about the Beatles solo work or hear reviews, people tend to focus on the hit albums, or the best known of the bunch. And so it's neat to have some thoughts on the ones that you don't hear about too often. And and a lot of times you don't hear about them for good reason, because frankly some of them just aren't that good, or pretty lousy, to tell the truth. But and I mean, Beatles are my favorite band, but some of their solo work is pretty pu. Um, and Joe's like that. He's a huge Beatle fan, but he's not afraid to say, if something's, he's not going to just say it's Beatle related, so it's automatically a 10 out of 10. He'll tell it like it is, and if he doesn't like something, he has no no problem with saying that. The other thing is, you know, you just get to hear, uh, even if the album's not that great, sometimes there's a hidden gem or two on there. So that's cool, and I've enjoyed listening to his reviews on that, and hope there's plenty more to come. Check out his channel if you haven't. But so yeah, that kind of inspired me to want to do some album reviews, and I didn't want to do solo Beatles because that's what me and Mr. Mayo's doing. I might throw in a Beatle or a solo Beatles album from time to time, but I thought instead I would just do just different albums from different groups and singers uh, as sort of an occasional fun thing to do. So I thought about the idea, and I didn't really have any thoughts on what the first album I wanted to review was. Um, and then a week or so, kind of unrelated to this, well, totally unrelated to this, I was playing some albums, and I threw this album on just because I hadn't heard it in been a few months, and I was in the mood to listen to it. And it's a funny album because it's one that is a very challenging album, I think, and a very, to me anyway, confounding album. It's an album that I still have yet to get my head around, and I can't really say whether I even like the thing or not, to be totally honest. And so I thought that would be a good place to start. But when I played it a week or so ago, and it had always, I'd never really been able to make up my mind, but it kind of clicked for me just out of the blue. Sometimes a record or a song will do that after one day you just kind of get it. And to a point I did, but I'm still kind of struggling with it. And so without further ado, that album would be the infamous, the legendary, the finally released after decades of conjecture and tall tales and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, Smile by the Beach Boys, which would have been, had it come out in 1967 like it was originally intended, the would have been the follow-up to the great Pet Sounds, which many consider to be the Beach Boys' high water mark. This was, well, Pet Sounds, so the story goes, was Brian Wilson's response to hearing Rubber Soul by the Beatles. Um, the early days of the Beach Boys, the hot rods and surfboards and bikini girls kind of gave way, and same with the Beatles of the Want to Hold Your Hand and She Loves You, Yeah, 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 as they got more sophisticated, and Dylan and the Stones and the Who and stuff from that kind of 63, 64 sound, that kind of inspired Brian Wilson that the Beach Boys need to move on and get more uh, gravitas in their music, get more profound, etc., which led to Pet Sounds, and which then led to this, which is, so the story goes anyway, Brian Wilson's attempt to write a teenage symphony to God. And the album, of course, was shelved. They worked on it from 66 to 67, and eventually it just fell apart, as did Brian's mental state. Uh, so the story goes. Some of the songs from this record eventually came out in a, I think, in a different form on albums like subsequent albums like Smiley Smile, probably Wild Honey, and a couple of the albums that came out in the after this. So this was never released, and for years it was this mythical, you know, great unreleased album, masterpiece, because nobody heard it. Some of it got bootlegged eventually. I had a bootleg of it that I still have a bootleg CD that I got 10, 15 years ago, and that was the first time I ever heard any of this, and I was expecting, really know what to expect. It had been built up as this Brian Wilson's masterpiece, this, better than Sergeant Pepper, blah, blah, blah. When I heard it, it definitely wasn't better than Sergeant Pepper, but I didn't know what to make of it. It was just a bunch of fragments and wandering around music, and which is kind of what this is too, to tell you the truth, that finally got released here a couple of years ago. This is the vinyl. Um, there's the track listing, which is of no use because that is not the track listing on the two albums. The I don't know. That's the other big mystery of Smile, is that what the track listing would have been had this been released, because apparently they either never, Wilson and or the Beach Boys never got around to figuring out the track listing or putting it in order, or they did and it's long since been forgotten. Um, but there were, like I said, in '67, the sleeve had been designed. This is what the sleeve would have been had this come out in '67. There were ads in Crawdaddy and Rolling Stone and I don't know, other magazines like that. There were radio ads. There were planned release dates, but then everything kind of fell apart and the thing was abandoned. Um, I'll show you real quick. I got the box set on this, which I showed in an earlier video, but there is the Smile CD, and there are other CDs you can see in there that are just outtakes and different takes of songs. So I think there's quite a few takes of Heroes and Villains and Vegetables and so forth and so on. But here's the album, which is available by itself on vinyl without having to buy this big box set, which also has a lot of other stuff in there, but I've shown that before. So two albums, 180 gram vinyl. Got your rainbow capital labels. The album, the CD, I think, is stereo. I've played that in my car, and the CD is, I believe, it's different running order than what's on the vinyl record, but it doesn't have the titles on the CD, so I couldn't really check that, or I could have. I just didn't feel like listening to it again. Three sides make up what probably or theoretically would have been the album proper. They are in mono. The fourth side is stereo. It is just some alternate versions of the stuff on the album. Now, obviously, that the Beach Boys would have put out a three-sided album in 1967, probably not. So a lot of this stuff probably would have been chopped down and turned into left on the cutting room floor to make a single album. Maybe they would have done a double album, who knows, but I'm thinking probably would have been a single album. And that's what's so confounding and puzzling about Smile, is what we have is there's some beautiful moments of brilliance and just magic and wonder and just great heights, and then they're just scattered in kind of a soup of just noodling, wandering, I don't know what, just kind of, and I don't know if those are like just rough ideas, that because we don't know how close this got to being finished. If this would have been basically, by and large, what the finished product would be had it been released, or if this was midway point or just the beginning, and a lot of this stuff was just Brian Wilson's brainstorming. Well, him and Van Dyke Parks, who helped him with the lyrics. I mean, if these were just rough ideas being kicked around, that would have, taken what they could out of that and refined them into proper songs. There are some proper songs, but there's a lot of fragments on this album, and so, if he would have seen it through, Smile might have been a markedly different animal than this, or it might have been roughly the same as this thing. And so it's just really hard to tell. Some of these songs are, I wrote down the times of the songs. I mean, you've got G is 51 seconds, Barnyard 48 seconds, I'm in Great Shape 29 seconds. That's a different list for something else. So that's not side 3. You got I Want to Be Around and Workshop a Minute 23. So I don't know if those were just supposed to be little segue bridges between songs, little musical interludes or something, or if those were something that Brian Wilson was hoping to make to flesh out into full songs at some point. And at this point, he's not the best person to go on because he kind of wandered in the wilderness of, unfortunately, depression, mental illness, and drug problems. And thankfully, seems to be quite a bit better now than he was through the 70s and 80s. But even so, he's still a little out of it. So his memory of those times may not be the best thing to go on. He may never have gotten to the point where he knew what he wanted to do with these songs, and even if he did, he may probably not remember now. You know, hate to sound rude, but unfortunately. So, just do a quick rundown. I'm not going to run through every single song on the album because, like I said, it's a double album, but opens with Our Prayer, which is 1:05, which is a really nice kind of a heavenly. Well, the theme of the album, so Wikipedia and other things I've read say, who knows, but the theme was sort of a glance back at the history of America, uh, manifest destiny. That's why it kind of moves east to west if you follow the album, which it sort of does. And that's also why you have these kind of cornball old songs in there like You Are My Sunshine, My Only Sunshine, kind of the history of America, um, and why you have a little bit of Hawaiian music in one of the songs. So, history of America, slightly psychedelic take on it, I suppose. Also, the Teenage Symphony to God bit. So, Big Question album. This isn't Wish They All Could Be California Girls. This is, in Brian's mind, supposedly, I don't want to put words in his mouth, this was supposed to be art, which, you know, I mean, at the same time, the Beatles and The Who and all those other groups were doing art as opposed to She Loves You, Yeah, 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 and so forth, so fair enough. But, um, you know, the meaning of life and God and so forth and so on, deep stuff. So, so Our Prayer starts the album, and that's fitting, I guess, for such a thing, and it's a good opening. Then you go into G, a little 50-minute, 51-second song, which is kind of a corny little doo-wop, sounds like Sha Na Na or something. Then you go into the first real song proper, Heroes and Villains, which is, I like it. It's the hits off this album. Good Vibrations would have been included on this. Obviously, it says on the cover, but it was recorded prior to Smile and released prior on a 45, one of their biggest hits. But that would have been one of the big hits on there. The others, the big ones, would have been probably Heroes and Villains, Surfs Up, and Vegetables or Vegetables, however they spell it. But Heroes and Villains, the first one, I like the song, but it's not great. It's kind of broken into segments and that vary musically, and it reminds me in some ways of A Quick One by The Who, off their second album, and I think The Who's Quick One is better than Vegetables, but it's kind of that same idea, I think. Um, Vegetables has, not Vegetables, yeah, Heroes and Villains um, has good parts. I just got all mixed up. I was talking about Vegetables, and this I'm supposed to be talking about Heroes and Villains being like A Quick One with its different segments. But anyway, some good parts, but it doesn't really add up to a great song, uh, I don't think. And that was one of their 45s. You go into Do You Like Worms? Okay. I'm in Great Shape is okay. It's 29 seconds, so you know. Barnyard, My Only Sunshine. Cabin Essence is what finishes side one, and that's the best song in my opinion on that side. It's got some nice fast parts to it, and then some nice just vocals, and a much better song than Heroes and Villains in my opinion. Side two, you've got Wonderful, which is more like the Beach Boys that you're thinking of, or the classic Beach Boys, kind of a harmony drenched song, really nice song. Uh, Look, Song for Children is second song, which is a playful song. I wrote some notes here, so that's why I'm looking down. Playful, but it meanders. The bass, piano, drums, tuba, instrumental with background vocals. Um, I don't know if this was an idea for a song proper in the making or kind of a segue piece between songs, but it's a nice, uh, kind of wanders, but it's a pretty nice song. Child is the Father of the Man is the third song, which comes from a William Blake poem, that line, and they just sing the song Child, 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 Child is the Father of the Man. Anyway, um, fourth song, Surf's Up. I've got that written down, masterpiece of the album. Love the trumpet, love the heavenly high vocal. I don't know if that's Brian or Carl singing on that. I think it's and then the second part of the song, which is just Brian and the piano, so I guess it is Brian singing all the way through. Then it kind of goes back into a coda, the child is the father of the man idea. But Surf's Up, I'm not really sure exactly what Brian Wilson's carrying on about there, but that is just a wonderful, beautiful song, and that's my favorite song on the album. Uh, Side three, I want to be around slash workshop is another little short song, a minute 23. Starts off kind of nice and pleasant little song. Then it goes into these sound effects that to my ears kind of reminds me of like a Santa's workshop type thing. I don't know if that's what they're going, or carpentry shop or something, but um, that's what I get out of it, Santa's workshop. So Vegetables is the other, would have been one of the other big songs off the album, I guess. But nice little piano intro, um, kind of a silly song of whimsy. Paul McCartney is supposed to be on this song eating carrots in the background, so the legend goes. Um, it's, I guess, this supposed to be this little whimsical, psychedelic bit of silliness on Brian Wilson's part. Vegetables is okay, nothing great. As far as that type of song, I think the first Pink Floyd album, Piper, the last song on their Bike by Syd Barrett, catches that kind of silly, whimsical, psychedelic spirit a lot better than Vegetables does for me. Holidays is got down as an okay instrumental. It's got sounds like classical music in bits and just sounds kind of silly in other parts. Um, Fourth song is Wind Chimes, which is nice harmony again, but no great shakes. Uh, the next one, five, is The Elements, Fire, Miss O'Leary's Cow, 2 minutes 35 seconds. There were songs, apparently there were songs for the other elements of water and air and all that, but the tapes have either been destroyed and or lost. Uh, Apparently after they did Fire, Brian, being kind of odd, building caught fire down the street the next day, and he thought it was because they recorded a song Fire, and so he, for years, said that he destroyed the tapes for Fire, uh, but he didn't because it's here. And that's other after Surf's Up. That's probably my second favorite song on the album, and I love that because it's just it's one of the most frenetic and loudest things the Beach Boys have ever done. I mean, don't go in there expecting Helter Skelter or anything. It's just not nothing like that. But it's a song that a lot of energy and a lot of fun, and I think it would have fit in perfectly on another 1967 album, The Who Sell Out. Kind of where the Who were at that point. It just kind of sounds Who-ish to me. So I really like that. Then Love to Say Dada, Dada, which is a chanting thing, uh, which makes a good introduction. It's not much of a song by itself, but it makes a good introduction to the final song, which is Good Vibrations. And we all know Good Vibrations because we've heard that on the radio a bazillion times. But and a great song, a masterpiece, I will not deny, but not one of my favorite Beach Boys songs. And so there you have it, a bunch of hard to make sense of on this album. And the I love parts of it. Parts of it just puzzle me to death. Uh, I'm nowhere near figuring this out. I don't know if there's even anything here to figure out. If it was just Brian Wilson kind of went round the bend and was up to God knows what, or if he was really on to something and just for various reasons couldn't see it through. Um, but it comes down to this for me. Well, there's some great moments on here, Surf's Up and the Fire Elements song, Essence. I like those, but I don't. The other things, Good Vibrations, like I said, I know it's great, but it's never been one of my favorite Beach Boys songs. I like it. I don't. I appreciate it more than I enjoy it, I guess. But Vegetables and Heroes and Villains are good, but subpar Beach Boys. The rest of this stuff is just sort of a gobbledygook, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a kind of tedious way. Uh, there's bits that peek through, and then there's just sort of meander. Um, but even at the very best, with the possible exception of Surf's Up, I don't think there's anything, in my opinion, here as good as, you know, Warmth of the Sun, Surfer Girl, Fun, 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 In My Room, Caroline No, God Only Knows, uh, the Surfing USA even. I mean, I think that the earlier Beach Boys stuff, this is certainly more sophisticated and advanced than the 63, 64, 65 Beach Boys, but better, not for my money, which is not to say that there's not greatness there, but I just, well, like I said, with Good Vibrations, appreciate more than I enjoy. That's probably the same with Smile, even though I do enjoy the challenge of trying to figure out what the hell this goofy album is all about from time to time. I have to be in the mood, but um, and I can listen to Surf's Up every day, but to sit down and listen to the whole album, I have to be in the mood, and it is fun to sort of try to puzzle out what could have been, what was supposed to be, and what, if anything, all that stuff means. But I don't rate it as high as the early Beach Boys stuff. Um, the stuff that came after Smile, Beach Boys were never the same, obviously. A lot of fans of their late 60s, 70s stuff. I got a few of those albums and I like some of that stuff, but I like their 63, 62 to 66 stuff best of all. And I think that's all of that is better than Smile. Uh, but it's a odd album. I don't know what I could give this. And I also think had this come out, it's kind of interesting to play little what if game of how this would have rated had it been released in 67. Because again, would it have been this or would it have been a totally, would they have worked on this more and refined it and changed things around? And would this be a totally different album? Who knows? But if it was this, I don't know how this would have been seen sitting side by side with Sergeant Pepper and Are You Experienced and The Who Sell Out and Piper at the Gates of Dawn and Moby Grape and the Grateful Dead and Surrealistic Pillow, whether the Beach Boys would have been seen either way as just sort of Wally Beaver corny, that was good 3 years ago, but nowadays they're way out of date, or if it would have been seen as brilliance. Uh, what he was trying to do apparently with a history or a look at America, I think is kind of the same thing that Ray Davies of the Kinks, and they were uh, way out of step with everything from about 60, late 66 onwards, definitely 67, 68, 69. They were not, they were out of step with the whole psychedelic thing and the hippie thing and all that, but in a good way. And Ray Davies wrote about childhood in England in the old days, especially Village Green and Arthur, and somewhat on something else, and Face to Face. Um, Ray did a lot better job than what Brian Wilson did here, which is not to say Brian Wilson is not a genius. He is, I think. If he could have stayed the course or had not had his problems, maybe Smile would have been the equal of those Kinks albums. Maybe not. But, so I don't know what to give that thing out of a scale of 1 to 10. I'm going to give it a 6 or a 6. I'll give it a 7. Give it a 7 out of 1 to 10 because I don't know what to make out of the damn thing. But so recommend it. I don't know. If you're a huge Beach Boys fan, obviously you're going to need this, but you don't need me to tell you that because you've already got it and you already know that. If you don't like the Beach Boys, if you think they're kind of cornball, this ain't going to change your mind. Listen to Pet Sounds, that might change your mind a little bit, but this isn't. If you're the casual Beach Boys fan that likes California Girls and Surfing USA, this is going to be have you scratching your head, I think. So I don't know. It's fun to grapple with, I guess. So anyway, that's album review number 1 down. If anyone's still watching, I've gone on forever here again, as usual. And appreciate everyone who watches the videos and subscribes. And I'll be back with another album soon enough, and we will talk to you then. So.